She was a sister to the legendary Warspite, and if you haven't seen our full video on Warspite, it's well worth the watch and we have linked it in the description. One of 4 mighty ships of the Queen Elizabeth class, Warspite helped define a new era of naval warfare. And like her, HMS Valiant would prove her worth not just in one world war, but in 2. Laid down in January 1913 at the Fairfield Shipbuilding and Engineering Company in Scotland, HMS Valiant was part of a revolution in naval warfare. She and her sisters, Warspite, Barham, Malaya, and later Queen Elizabeth herself, were the first British battleships to be powered entirely by oil. Much faster, more powerful, and more modern than anything before them. They each carried 8 15-inch guns, some of the most formidable naval artillery in existence at the time. Commissioned in 1916, HMS Valiant entered service during the height of the First World War, just in time to join the Royal Navy's Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jutland. On May 31, 1916, the North Sea became a battlefield, as the British and German fleets clashed in the largest naval engagement of the First World War. HMS Valiant was part of the 5th Battle Squadron under Rear Admiral Hugh Evan Thomas, sailing alongside her sisters into the heart of the action. With shells ripping through the sky and explosions lighting the horizon, Valiant faced off against Germany's most powerful ships. She engaged at long range, firing salvo after salvo in the chaotic, smoke-filled void. Though she took no major damage herself, she witnessed the loss of many. Sister ship's Warspite was heavily damaged, and Barham took several hits too. It was a brutal introduction to war. After Jutland, Valiant remained on active duty for the rest of the war, but saw no further major combat. When peace came, she continued to serve, carrying the Royal Navy's presence across the world, from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, to distant colonial stations. But as the 1930s wore on, the once mighty HMS Valiant began to show her age. In 1937, she was withdrawn from service and sent for a major modernization. Over the next 2 years, Valiant was rebuilt from the keel up. Her superstructure was redesigned, a new bridge and tower mast were installed, and radar was fitted, cutting-edge technology for the time. Her propulsion was overhauled, and her anti-aircraft batteries were completely replaced with more modern weapons. When she emerged in 1939, just as war loomed once more over Europe, HMS Valiant was ready. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, Britain and France declared war. HMS Valiant was initially held with the Home Fleet, but by 1940, she was transferred to the Mediterranean, where the real naval war was heating up. In June of that year, Italy entered the war on the side of the Axis. The Mediterranean became a deadly arena, narrow, heavily patrolled, and filled with threats both above and below the surface. The Royal Navy needed every battleship it could get. HMS Valiant joined Force H, operating out of Gibraltar, and then later joined Admiral Andrew Cunningham's fleet in Alexandria. She was now a key part of Britain's naval presence in the Mediterranean, alongside HMS Warspite and HMS Barham, together once again. It was in these waters that she played her part in the background of Operation Judgment, the audacious British air raid on the Italian fleet at Taranto in November 1940. While Valiant herself didn't launch the attack, her role in the fleet helped draw enemy attention and maintain pressure, allowing the carrier-based Swordfish biplanes to strike. The success of Taranto shocked the world and directly influenced Japan's planning for Pearl Harbor. But Valiant's war was only just beginning. In early 1941, she helped escort convoys to support Allied forces in Greece as the Germans swept through the Balkans. Under constant air attack, the Royal Navy covered evacuations, bombardments, and landings. Valiant endured near misses and tense standoffs, but held her ground. Then came Cape Matapan, perhaps her most defining moment. In March 1941, British intelligence intercepted Italian naval signals, revealing a major fleet movement. Admiral Cunningham saw his chance. At night, on March 28, in the dark waters of the Ionian Sea, Valiant, Warspite, and Baum closed in on a formation of Italian heavy cruisers. The Italians had no idea they were walking into a trap. At just 3,000 yards, point-blank for battleships, Valiant opened fire. Her 15-inch guns lit up the night sky, and within minutes, 3 Italian heavy cruisers, Fiume, Zara, and Pola, were reduced to twisted, burning wrecks. It was a crushing blow to the Italian Navy. The Battle of Cape Matapan was a textbook victory. British radar and night fighting tactics had triumphed. HMS Valiant's gunnery was precise and devastating. It was the last great surface gunnery battle of its kind, and Valiant stood in the center of it. But her greatest test would come from below, from a silent, stealthy enemy armed with nothing more than explosives and courage. That part of the story begins in Alexandria, with 6 Italian frogmen and a daring plan to cripple the Royal Navy's most powerful ships. By late 1941, HMS Valiant was battle-hardened. She'd survived Jutland, been rebuilt for modern war, and delivered crushing blows at Cape Matapan. But while she had faced cruisers and aircraft, her next enemy would be invisible, and already inside the harbor. On the night of December 18, 1941, in the supposedly safe anchorage of Alexandria, Egypt, 6 Italian frogmen launched one of the most daring underwater operations of World War II. Riding 3 human-guided torpedoes, low, slow, and stealthy, they infiltrated the heavily defended harbor. Their mission: cripple the British battleships Valiant and Queen Elizabeth, along with an oil tanker and a destroyer. They succeeded. One of the human-guided torpedoes planted a limpet mine directly beneath Valiant's keel, under her forward magazines. Just before dawn, the mine exploded. The blast was thunderous, a column of water shot into the air, bulkheads crumpled, compartments flooded, several sailors were killed in the initial shock, the ship shook violently, but stayed afloat. Thanks to her internal compartmentalization and the cool-headed response of her crew, Valiant did not capsize. From above, she looked intact. She was quickly brought to even keel, her flag still flying proudly at anchor. Admiral Cunningham, not wanting to reveal the extent of the damage to the enemy, ordered silence. It was a brilliant deception. To the outside world, including Axis spies watching the harbor, Valiant appeared untouched. But below decks, the truth was grim. The mine had caused massive internal flooding. Electrical systems were damaged, her structural strength was compromised, though afloat, Valiant was crippled. Temporary repairs kept her operational for a time, but it was clear she needed a full refit. In August 1942, HMS Valiant sailed under heavy escort to Durban, South Africa, where she entered dry dock for major reconstruction. She remained there into 1943, missing much of the early action in the Mediterranean as the Allies pushed into North Africa and Sicily. But she returned in time for the next phase, which was Italy. In September 1943, following the Italian surrender, Valiant helped support the landings at Salerno. Her 15-inch guns once again roared to life, pounding German positions along the coast to support the embattled Allied beachhead. She shelled enemy defenses, supply lines, and troop concentrations, providing critical firepower to the ground forces below. It was the kind of war she was built for. Her heavy shells turned fortified positions into rubble and dust. The crews worked in brutal heat, under air attack, day after day. In early 1944, Valiant was reassigned to the Eastern Fleet, joining British operations in the Indian Ocean. The Pacific was now the center of gravity in the global war, and Valiant, despite her age, still had a role to play. She supported operations off the coast of Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka, Burma, and the Dutch East Indies, deterring Japanese movement and supporting the growing presence of the Royal Navy in the region. In some ways, it was a quieter phase of her war, but vital nonetheless. But even as she operated far from home, her age was catching up with her. In August 1944, while entering a floating dry dock at Trincomalee, a lifting accident severely damaged her propeller shafts. The dry dock was unstable and had been poorly handled, one of her propeller shaft lines had been twisted, and structural damage made it unsafe to operate at full speed. The necessary parts and facilities to make full repairs weren't available in theatre. HMS Valiant, still afloat and able to steam slowly, was now effectively out of action. She was ordered home. In early 1945, she limped back to the UK at reduced speed, arriving too late to rejoin combat operations. By the time she reached Britain, Germany was weeks from surrender, and Japan not far behind. Her guns would never fire again. After the war, HMS Valiant was deemed too worn and too expensive to modernize. Her design, revolutionary in 1914, but now obsolete. The world had changed. Battleships had given way to air carriers, radar-guided weapons, and jet aircraft. She was decommissioned in 1945 and officially paid off fully in 1946. After more than 3 decades of service, HMS Valiant was sold for scrap in 1948. She had steamed in 2 world wars. Fired at Jutland, at Matapan, at Salerno. She had taken hits from above and below, and kept fighting. She outlasted her sisters Baham and Queen Elizabeth, and served alongside Warspite from beginning to end. Her name may not carry the fame of the Hood, or the mystique of the Bismarck. But she was there, on the front lines, year after year, doing the hard work, taking the hits, and bringing her crew home. HMS Valiant, she was a survivor. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe and explore our channel for previous battleship videos. Bye for now and Godspeed.